I never really liked Brussels
You know,
sprouts.
the other thing about Brussels sprouts is just that.
Did you know there's BPA in cash register receipts? Bisphenol A? Isn't that the stuff that's toxic? Yes? Whoa,
Sure, it's a pie.
did I really just see that? BPA mimics estrogen and is an endocrine disruptor. The endocrine system is what controls your hormones. Didn't BPA used to be in baby bottles and now they're saying it's in the lining of canned goods? Receipts have 250 to 1,000 times as much BPA as cans do? BPA is also in a lot of personal care products? What?
You're only paying $70. And there's your receipt.
BPA is a reproductive, developmental, and systemic toxicant. In human and animal studies, BPA exposure has been associated with fertility issues, breast cancer, asthma, diabetes, depression, heart disease, memory function, higher blood pressure, and can impact the liver and brain function? Whoa. Unlike BPA and hard plastics, BPA and receipts can rub right off onto your skin?
Did you give me my discount?
Let's see. Blah, 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 blah. Oh, right there.
Thank you, dear.
Problem.
Hand sanitizers and lotions increase the rate of BPA absorption into the bloodstream?
Gotta stay clean. So how we doing today?
Not sure.
Welcome to Happiness in the City. This is Barbara, and I'd like today to focus our attention on a very important topic that is connected with creating common ground situations and creating peace from diverse opinions and diverse interests. And this is a topic that is very important because it continues with what I have been doing for a few weeks now, which is we need to learn about nature of diverse kinds of authority, because authority comes from different sources and has different shapes and different purposes and different ways to maintain. And we have to become very sophisticated about it, because this is the key to solve a lot of the difficulties that we have been dealing with today. And some of those difficulties are very dangerous, and they ended up in disasters and wars and terrorism and all kinds of other very negative events and phenomena. So we have to now learn to think about diverse kinds of authority, because the focus was really on matters of emergency security, but that is not long-term solution to create peacemaking measures and stability. You cannot have stability if everything you organize is around emergencies, because that is very stressful for the heart, and it really doesn't solve a problem. It just creates short-term solution for something that needs to be developed into a beautiful, peaceful, wonderful set of stability events. And that is something that is opposing to emergency. Emergency event is different than stability event. Stability event organizes actions and words and timetables in a predictable, rhythmic way. I'll give you an example. If you were shut off from your house and you cannot enter your kitchen, you cannot get food, you are interrupted in your predictability routine, which is to go to your house and have a meal. So as an emergency, you go and have a meal somewhere else. In situation of stability, you plan your meals and you create a situation in which you will not lock yourself out from your house, and that is long-term stability. So we need to talk about this nature of emergency authority as only one way of exerting authority, but that shouldn't become a routine, because it just wears the whole nation down. And we have been in this emergency situation around the government for quite a while now. And there's nothing I could do about this except dealing with emergencies, because I did not have the right understanding of divine point of view on that matter, on the root of all authority, which is authority of God himself. I didn't have the understanding of the nature of authority that created authority. Because if you don't understand who created authority, you really don't know what authority is. So today I'd like to talk about authority that is vested in diverse institutions. The last few weeks I've been talking about authority that is embodied in one person, person of God, and then those whom he chooses as the ones he deals with. So that's divine authority is always personal. Divine authority does not work through groups or ensembles. Like when Jesus Christ of Nazareth was born, it was Son of God, and he has all authority in his person, one person. Whereas the authority of a Congress or an institution can be authority created to include several people. Here I would like to show you amazing article on this issue in Wikipedia. By the way, I encourage you to support it. It's really an amazing organization. And here you have the meaning of the word Congress. A Congress, and I'm talking about any Congress. I'm not specifically talking about Congress of the United States of America. In this article, it's about the nature of that kind of authority. So we talked about authority that is from God, divine authority, and this would be authority that is created from diverse people. It's a different kind of authority. And that kind of authority is not divine. It can be anointed by God or his chosen leaders, but you will not have a situation in which a Congress would be representative of divine right. It doesn't work that way from the point of view of kingdom of God, but God can anoint Congress, or he can curse it if he disapproves. So let's see how this encyclopedia talks about it. A Congress is a formal meeting of the representatives of different countries, constituent states, organizations, trade unions, political parties, and other groups. So you have a situation in which you see that it's a formal meeting of representatives of people who meet to create a certain agreement or to create an opportunity for creation of agreements. Sometimes agreements are not created during a particular meeting, but it's an opportunity for people to meet and look at each other eye to eye, face to face. Often people then also eat together, dinners, lunches, and it creates connection of life between them. So it's a very important connection. And today we have also opportunities of meeting through social media, through internet, and often they are followed up through personal meetings. So internet added a new form of meeting situations, but also in many situations simply enriched the traditional way of people meeting with each other. And the groups can be either countries or constituent states within a country, like United States of America is made up of many states under federal government. So not all states have to meet for all purposes. Sometimes states meet just for a particular purpose that concerns them. Then there are many organizations of non-political types. There are business organizations. There are trade unions which have been now transformed to other types of legal security, but they used to be very powerful. We have political parties and many, many other groups of people. So there's a situation in which a certain authority is created during those meetings. First, there's authority of the meeting itself, because not everybody is invited. So there's a certain authority exerted on making decisions who would be invited, who would be allowed to speak, who would not be allowed to speak, what topics would be on the agenda. So there are all of those complex matters that are revolving around creation of authority of those meetings. And this is where we have interaction between diverse people, and they have two choices when they organize that kind of meeting. They will either agree by finding common ground, and they will be able to use that agreement to further their agenda, or they will end up fighting with each other or shutting each other down, closing the meeting. So just the fact that we have a situation that people have opportunity to meet together does not mean that peace will be the outcome. In other words, just because people gather together for a certain purpose does not ensure peace. So we have a situation in which political parties have been nastily fighting with each other. Trade unions destroying employers, organizations creating such security that it stifles their productivity. There are many countries that are unable to come into agreement with other countries. So this is an area that has to be very wisely and intelligently handled. Some people assume just that just because we have those kinds of organizations that good outcomes will happen or peace will be established, and it is not the case. Look what has been going on with the USA government. Internal fights between the members of the USA Congress, within the Congress, internal fights between diverse organizations in the executive office. The Supreme Court authority has been subject to a lot of influence outside of judicial matters. So there's a lot of conflict, there's a lot of dissent, there is protest, and there is authority created within those organizations that is supposed to create peace, but often it creates wars and sometimes silence, like the shutdown created total silence. And then there is also a situation in which people who come to the authority of those meetings, then they want to create authority to destroy people who are not invited, who are outside of the realm. In other words, they use that kind of authority not to create peace between themselves and their neighbors who are not part of the meeting, but use that kind of authority to take over maybe their properties or bank accounts or houses. So then the authority of the meeting is used to create crime, and that destabilizes the entire country. So we are coming to this situation which we have to understand the nature of authority and whether the authority is used to create peace and good order, or if the authority is used to create crime. So we have to have very calm attitude to the understanding of that kind of authority of meetings of people in the context of decision making that has long-term political influence and political significance. So we have to very calmly develop ways to connect our conversations to that wisdom about the nature of authority in the outcomes of that particular people's authority action. Is it a crime, or is it virtue? Or is it something that was created as common ground to avoid crime, but it's not complete agreement? Many people who went through the pain of Russian Revolution in 1917 experienced clash of authorities. The authority of the Russian royal family was destroyed by crime of murder, and the state that created authority, Vladimir Lenin's state, had purpose to impose his view of authority on everybody under him, and that resulted in destruction of beauty in Russia at that time. Eventually, a lot of the beauty was restored, but he created a situation in which the authority of beauty, which is royal authority, was delegalized, and he just wanted that ugly authority as standard for decision making. So there were buildings destroyed, beautiful facades destroyed, people were forced to wear ugly clothing. Many people, of course, were physically eliminated, millions and millions of people. Some of you that know the history study this. And Russia has never recovered from it. It has been doing the best it can since the fall of the Soviet Union, restored the beautiful symbols of the royal family, but within the mind, within the head, within the perception of the population of Russia, the destruction is still there. And it will only be overcome by the type of authority that Lenin destroyed. But he destroyed that original authority too, so there is a vacuum there. And there's nothingness there. And I'm aware of it. And I raised this issue with God, and he explained to me that the only way to bring healing to a nation that used to have royal authority or beauty, and then this was destroyed and ugliness was imposed as authority, the only way to bring this to healing is frankly through divine resurrection, because you cannot revive something that is dead and it has been dead for many generations. So this is a situation in which the authority of God has the power to bring that resurrection within the current generation, but the current generation is so blocked off by focusing only on authority of meetings that they don't even understand the danger they are in, because the authority of meetings is unstable and sooner or later creates emergency situation or constant stress. So this is the situation that right now is in Russia, but not only in Russia, in many other European countries. There is this vacuum. Look what is happening in France. The revolution of France created people's power by destroying the authority of divine beauty that created this nakedness in France. And people try to reconnect with that past, but you can't. It became a museum. The only way is for somebody who has connection to God to persuade God to resurrect this perception in the current generation. You have to understand that once that kind of authority is destroyed, it's gone. It cannot be revived. In other words, if there is a crown in a nation and that crown is overpowered, because the crown would be on one person, and then the crown is overpowered, and then God withdraws from that crown, and the crown becomes deaf, dumb, and blind. So people put their thoughts and their ideas to it, create all kinds of collective decision-making meetings, but the crown is still deaf, dumb, and blind, because God is not there. And then this may go on for generations. So if someone says, wait a minute, why are we living in this situation of blindness and deafness and dumbness? And then God says, you have to recognize God as your divine authority first, and that is supernatural, that's miraculous, that's from kingdom of God. And you cannot force God to do it. He has to be willing to do it and find people with enough faith and or create people of his choice to do it. So we have to understand this relationship between the living authority of divine nature and the authority of meetings, which is of a different kind, and it's fleeting, and it's temporal, and it's mortal. So in a situation that we have today in the world, we need the authority of meetings to be under light and gaze of God, because then they will know the direction of the light and God who loves all of us. So that is the foundation, that is the common ground. The common ground of agreement in our current situation is to recognize that we need God's grace of resurrection power, of his authority on earth, and from this will come the right light from his gaze and from the people he chooses to be his representative, so to speak, on earth. And then we can have living, beautiful authority that empowers us and that brings peace.